Hi guys, good morning everyone. Welcome to this Git and GitHub free workshop. Okay, so in order to attend this free workshop, there are no prerequisites available. Anybody can attend this GitHub free workshop. This workshop duration, it is going to be 3 to 4 days of time and class timings daily. The class will be available from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. IST. Okay, so you are going to get soft copy notes and class videos also, right? I'm going to share the class notes and I'm going to share the class videos of this GitHub workshop. So it is going to be 3 to 4 days of time. And this workshop trainer, myself, my name is Ashok. So this is very quick introduction related to this workshop. So we are here to understand what is Git and what is GitHub, how we are going to work with this Git and GitHub as part of our projects. So in order to attend this workshop, there are no prerequisites available. From very beginning level, I'm going to explain what is Git, how to set up this Git and how to work with this Git. It is going to take 3 to 4 days of time and I will be the trainer for this one. Daily class timings from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. IST. For this Git and GitHub workshop, you are going to get the soft copy notes and class videos. So to get the notes and videos, follow this WhatsApp channel. The channel link I have already shared in the chat box. This is Ashok IT WhatsApp channel. So in that channel, I'm going to share this GitHub class notes and class videos also. I hope all of you clear with the agenda. How many days this workshop will be available, timings of this workshop, and what you are going to get as part of this workshop, and from where you can access the class notes and class videos of this GitHub workshop. If you are clear, please respond in the chat box. Then we will get started with the actual content. Clear for everybody? Yes. So channel link I have shared in the chat box. Just click on that and follow that. Then you can access everything. Very good, guys. Fine. First, let's understand what is GitHub and why we need to go for GitHub. Okay. So if you see, GitHub is called as version control software. So what is GitHub? GitHub is called as version control software. It is a platform which is used to store project related files or project related source code. GitHub is a Git is a version control software. Git is a version control software. What is Git, guys? Git is a version control software. GitHub is a platform which is used to store project related files or project related source code. Okay, now here, if you observe, when we are working in the real time, in a project, multiple developers will be available. So for one project, development team will be available. Multiple developers will be working for one project. Now, let's assume that in my project, there are 4 developers available. In my project, there are 4 developers available, and all these 4 developers are working from different locations. Okay, so one developer is working from Hyderabad location, one developer is working from Pune location, one developer is working from Chennai location. Okay, another developer is working from USA. So there are 4 developers available and all these developers are working for same project. All these developers are working for same project. So when the developers are working from different locations for the same project, okay, then how the developers code can be integrated. So assume that they are working on one e-commerce application. So one developer is working on user management functionality, one developer is working on products management functionality, one developer working on payment related functionality, one developer working related to orders functionality, admin functionality, reports functionality. So multiple functionalities available in the project. Those functionalities are getting developed by multiple developers. So in our project, team of developers available. those team members are working from different locations. When the team members are working from different locations, there are two problems here. Sir, what are the two problems if our team members are working from different locations? First problem, how to integrate all the developers code at one place. Okay, so at the end of the day, I want to execute the entire application. So if the developers are working from different locations, how to integrate all the developers code at one place? That is one of the biggest challenge we are going to face in the project. That is one of the biggest challenge we are facing, because nowadays people are not going to office, people are working from home only. Nowadays people are not going to office, people are working from home only. Okay, so if the people are working from the home, if the people are working from different locations, how to integrate all the developers code at one place? That is one of the biggest challenging task. And second problem, how to track code changes in the project. How to track code changes in the project. Because yesterday I have implemented some logic related to user login functionality. Yesterday I have tested my code, it is working as expected. Yesterday I have done login functionality implementation in the project, and I have tested my functionality that was working as expected. But today morning my functionality not working. When I see the code, there are some changes. Whatever the code I have implemented yesterday, that code is not available today. Somebody made some changes to my code. Who made? When? Why? What? So we should be able to track the changes happened in the project to source code. So if you are working in the team, multiple developers will be available. Those developers will be working from different locations. When the team members are working from different locations, then there are two problems available. What is the first problem? So here if you see one person from Hyderabad location and one person from Bangalore location, Pune location, Chennai location, people are working from different locations. When the people are working from different locations, mainly there are two challenges available. How to integrate all the developers code at one place, and how to track the changes. Who has done the changes to my code? How to track code changes in the project. So when I say tracking, who modified my code, okay, and when modified my code, when they modified my code. Yesterday my code is available, but today my code is not available. What they have modified in my code, and another important thing, why they have modified my code. So we should be able to track all these changes. Okay. In order to resolve these two problems, we are going to use a concept called Git and GitHub concept. In order to overcome these two problems in the project, we are going to use a concept called Git and GitHub. Sir, how this Git and GitHub is going to help you? GitHub is a platform which is used to store project related files or project related source code at one place, guys. Now, so we are going to use GitHub platform. We are going to use a GitHub platform like this. Now, this GitHub platform we are going to use in order to integrate all the developers code at one place. So there is a concept called GitHub repository concept. We are going to use a concept called GitHub repository concept. Then all the developers will be connected to this GitHub repository and they will integrate all the code at one place. Okay. How to integrate all the developers code at one place? For the first problem, the solution is GitHub repository. So this GitHub repository is a platform which is used to store all the developers or source code at one place. Okay. Now in this GitHub, we can create a source code repository to store project code. So GitHub, if you see github.com, a beautiful platform is available. If you see github.com, a beautiful platform is available. In this platform, you can create a repository. Repository nothing but a place where we are going to store our projects. So here you can go to the github.com. You can create the account in the github.com and you can store all your project related code at one place. So if you see in my GitHub account, I have created almost 120 repositories. For one project, we are going to create one repository. Okay. In GitHub, we can create a source code repositories to store project code. All the developers can connect to the repository and they can store all the source code. Code integration will become very easy when we are having a platform like a GitHub. If the GitHub platform is not available, then how do you integrate the code? Can you go to each and every developer with a pen drive, copy the code and integrate all the code? That is very difficult. So that's why we are going to use this GitHub platform in order to store the code. How to store the code in the GitHub? In the GitHub, we are going to create a repository. So what is the meaning of repository? Repository is a place where we can store all the project related code. For one project, one repository we are going to create, GitHub repository. GitHub repository nothing but a place where we are going to store our project source code. For one project, one GitHub repository will be available. So sir, what is the benefit if you are storing this code in the GitHub repository? If you are storing this code in the GitHub repository, what is the benefit? GitHub repository will monitor all the code changes. Whatever the changes that are happening to the project code, it is going to monitor all those code changes. So how it is going to monitor? Who modified that code? When there any file, it's not only code, it can be any file. If there is a XML file or if there is a properties file, YML file. Okay, whenever you store some file in the GitHub repository, then it is going to track all the changes. Who modified that file? When they modified that file? What they modified in that file? And why they modified that file. So this GitHub repository will monitor all the code changes. So whatever the two problems that we are having, for these two problems, the solution is GitHub. So GitHub is a version control software that is used to store all the source code at one place. Along with that, it is going to provide monitored access. What is the meaning of monitored access, guys? Monitored access nothing but it is going to track all the changes that are happening to our project. It is going to monitor all the changes that are happening to our project. Who modified, when modified, what modified, why modified, everything we can track by using this GitHub repository concept. Are you guys clear with my point? So in a project, multiple developers will be available. Like this, I have shown you in the diagram. Multiple developers will be available in the project and those developers will be working from different locations. Those developers will be working from different locations. When the developers are working from different locations, how to integrate all the developers code at one place? If the code is integrated, then how to track the code changes? Who modified my code? When they modified? Why they modified? What they modified? So you can track all these changes. So with this GitHub, the solution available for the both problems. All the developers you can connect with the single repository, can integrate their code. And it is going to monitor all the changes that are happening to the project. Okay, so GitHub is a version control software that is used to integrate all the developers code at one place and it is going to provide monitoring access also. Are you clear why people will use GitHub in the real time? Are you guys clear with this point? Why people will use GitHub in the real time? Are you guys clear with this one? Are you guys clear with my point? Why people will use GitHub in the real time? Can you guys respond in the chat box? Why people will use GitHub in the real time? Why people will use GitHub in the real time? Come on. To integrate the code at one place and to track the code changes. To integrate all the developers code at one place and to track all the code changes, we are going to use this Git and GitHub concept. Okay, fine. How we are going to work with this Git or GitHub? Environment setup. Environment setup. So first thing, if you want to work with this Git or GitHub, how we need to do the practice. It's not a theoretical workshop, guys. It is 100% practical workshop. So how we are going to work with this GitHub concept. Git is version control software. GitHub is a platform where we are going to store the code. So in order to communicate with this GitHub repository, we are going to use Git client, guys. GitHub is a platform. How we are going to communicate with this Git platform? By using Git client software. By using Git client software, we are going to communicate with the GitHub repository. I will show you the clear difference between Git and GitHub also. As of now, GitHub is a platform where we are going to create the repositories in order to store all the code. How to do this? Environment setup. So the very first step, you need to create the account in the github.com. github.com website is available. You need to create account that is free of cost. You no need to pay anything for that. Once you create the account in the GitHub, then you can log in into your GitHub account. Now this is my GitHub account. I already logged in. Let me sign out again. Okay. So here github.com website is available. You can go to this github.com website and you can sign up. It is free of cost. You no need to pay anything for that. Okay, if you already have the account, then you can log in into your existing account. I'm already having my account in the GitHub. I will sign in into my account. So I have additional security for my GitHub with the multi-factor authentication. So when I try to log in with my mail ID, it will send one code for me. Okay. So if I enter that code, then only I can log in. 421547. Okay. So with this, I'm able to log in into my GitHub account. Okay. Like this, you can create the free account and you can log in into your GitHub account. Once it is done, so GitHub account is available. Then how to connect with this GitHub, how to create the repositories, how to store the code, how to get the code. For that, we need Git client software. You need to download and install Git client software in your system. Okay, download and install Git client software in our system. Okay, now, so just go to Google and type Git client. Okay, Git client to download for Windows. I'm using Windows OS. So Git client download for Windows. It will open one website called gitscm.com. Okay, so this is the URL in order to download Git client software. So here you can download this software for Windows, download for Windows. Here we have two options. Standalone installer is available, portable installer is available, anything is fine. So my OS is 64-bit OS, so I'm downloading 64-bit Git for Windows setup. Then it will download one .exe file. So you just need to double click and install Git client software. Sir, what is this Git client and what is this GitHub? Okay, GitHub is a cloud platform which is used to store our code, and Git client which is used to communicate with the GitHub cloud platform. I downloaded Git client software. Okay, once you download that, as discussed, it is going to give you one .exe file, guys. One .exe file will be available. Just you need to double click on next and finish. Then Git client software will be installed into your system. My Git client is getting installed. You can see here Git client software is installing. Click on install. Yeah. So in my system already Git client available. It is removing the previous Git version and it is going to install latest Git version. So Git is a client software that is used to communicate with the GitHub. So in the GitHub, we are going to create the repository. One repository means for one project. For one project, one repository will be available. In that repository, we are going to store all our project code. Multiple developers will connect with the same repository. They will integrate the code at one place. So the best thing, code integration will become very easy. And the second thing, it will monitor who is making the change, when, why, what. So everything we can track. So without that tracking, that will become very, very difficult to work with the project. Okay. Git client is one software that is used to communicate with the GitHub repository. Git client is a software that is used to communicate with the GitHub repository. So we created account in the GitHub and I logged in into my GitHub account. So in this GitHub account, we can create the repositories. So how to communicate with that repository? For that reason, I'm downloading Git client. Now, if you see, so developers available in the different locations will connect with this GitHub by using this Git client software. Git client is used to communicate with the GitHub account. In the GitHub account, we are going to create repositories. For one project, one repository will be created. Yeah. So almost done, guys. Installation process is in progress. Yeah. Git client installation is almost completed. This Git client is used to communicate with GitHub repositories. Yes, finished. Okay, click on done. Once you are done with this installation process, now you can check Git client is available or not. So to check that Git client is available or not, you can simply go to your file system, just go to create one empty folder here. I'm creating a folder called Git practice. So I have a folder Git practice. In the Git practice folder, if you right click, you can see Git bash here. If you click on that Git bash, then Git client software is opened. Okay, Git bash is one Git client. This is a CLI client which is used to communicate with the GitHub repository. So I'm showing once again how to open Git bash. Go to create one folder for your practice purpose. I created a folder called Git practice. So when I right click on my mouse, then it is giving me option Git GUI and Git bash. Git GUI means a client with a graphical user interface and Git bash means a client with CLI and GUI. First, let's go with the Git GUI or Git bash. First, I'm going with Git bash. Open Git bash here. Git bash means it is a CLI software which is used to communicate with the GitHub repository. So I opened my Git bash. So once you open Git bash, you need to configure your name and your email in the Git bash. Open Git bash and configure your name and your email so that you need to introduce yourself to the Git client. So who are you? What is your name? What is your email ID? You need to introduce yourself to the Git. Okay. For that, we need to execute two commands. One is git config username, git config user email. So how to execute these commands, guys? Git config global user dot name. So what is your name that you can configure? Okay. Then configure your email also. How to configure? Git config global user dot email. You can give your email ID here. Okay, your name and your email ID. So this is one-time process in your system. Every day you no need to introduce about yourself to the Git client. So you just need to configure your name and your email ID. So configuring name and email in is just one-time process in Git bash. All right. So if you want to perform some operations with that, then you how to do the environment setup. Create account in the github.com. It is free of cost. You no need to pay anything for that. Once your account is ready, then you can download and install Git client software in your system. To download the Git client, I have given one URL for you. Then open Git bash and configure your name and your email using below commands. Okay, git config command you need to execute, and git config with name and email. You can configure your name and your email. So this is one-time process in the Git bash. Are you guys clear with environment setup? Are you guys clear with the environment setup? So if you want to do the practicals, if you want to do the practice, so you need to create account in the GitHub. Then you need to download and install Git client software in your system. Once Git client is installed in your system, then open Git bash by using your mouse right click. Then configure your name and your email. Okay, so new folder is not mandatory. From anywhere you can open Git bash. So just new folder I created to store the files. So from any file system, from any folder, you can open Git bash and you can configure your name and email. Configuring the name and email is just one-time process in the Git bash. So with this, I hope you got the clarity. What is GitHub and why we are using this GitHub, and how to set up the environment for our practice. What is GitHub? GitHub is a version control cloud platform to store all the code at one place. Why? So code integration will become easy, code monitoring will become easy. It will track all the code changes. How to do the setup? Create account and download and install Git client, configure name and email. So fine. Once this configuration is completed, then next we need to understand what is GitHub repository. Next, we need to understand what is GitHub repository. So what is a repository means? Repository is a place. It is like one folder. Repository is a place, or repository is like a folder which is used to store project to source code. Okay. For every project, one repository will be created. So what is GitHub repository? Repository is a place where we can store project to source code or project related configuration files. For every project, one repository will be created. For one project, one repository will be available. So now you log into GitHub, go to your profile, there is an option called repository option is available. Or else once you log into the github.com, there is a button called new button is available. That means it is used to create the new repository in the GitHub. So you can create any number of repositories. Repository is a place which is used to store all the project to source code at one place. All the developers will store the code at one place. Code integration will become easy. Code monitoring will become easy. So now let me go and create one new repository. Click on new button. So this is my GitHub account username, and what is the name that you want to give for the repository. I'm giving the name as demo application 1. So you can generally people will give project name as a repository name. For example, I'm developing a project for SBI loans application. Okay, SBI loans application we are developing. With the project name, we are going to create the repository name. Then you want to make this repository as a public, or you want to make this repository as a private. Public means anyone on the internet can see this repository. So if your repository is a public, people can easily access your repository, but they can't make any changes to your code. They can just watch your repository. They can download your code, but they cannot modify. If you don't want anybody to see your repository, only you should see your repository, then you can make it as a private. So repositories we can create. So one project, one repository, right? So repositories are divided into two types, guys. What are those two types? One is called public repository, another one is called private repository. They have given the description clearly. What is the difference between public repository and private repository? Public repository means anyone on the internet can see this repository. You choose who can commit, who want to modify, who can modify, that you can decide. Anybody can see. Private means you decide who want to see, who can access your repository, who can modify your repository, that you can manage. Okay, public and private. So I'm creating a new repository, SBI loans app. Type I'm giving as public. That's it. Click on create repository. So with this one, repository got created and repository URL also generated. So this is my GitHub repository URL. So this is called project GitHub Git repo URL. So now tomorrow in the company, DevOps team is going to create the GitHub repositories for the project. Okay. So we can create two types of repositories in the GitHub. One is called as public repository. Another one is called private repository. Public means anybody can see, you choose who can commit. Private means you choose who can see and who can commit to your repository. So I created one public repository. This is my repository URL. This is my repository URL. Now, project team members tomorrow, all the developers will connect with the repository by using this repository URL only. So what is GitHub repository? GitHub repository is a place where we can store our project source code. For every project, one Git repository will be created. One GitHub repository will be created. So we, at the time of creating the repository, they are asking, do you want to make it as public? Do you want to make it as private? Public means anybody can see. Private means you decide who can see your repository. You can give access for your repository by using collaborators. Add collaborators to this repository. Now you are a team lead. You want to give the permission for your team members. Invite collaborators. For your repository, you can add the people. Then they can access your repository. That I will discuss later point of time. How to add collaborators for the repository. Are you clear? What is repository and how to create a repository? Are you guys clear? What is repository and how to create a repository? Okay, fine. So repository got created. Repository got created now. How to work with this repository? How to add the team members, that I will show you. Okay, so team members you can add by using collaborator concept. By using their email ID, you can add your team members to this repository. Add collaborators to this repository by using their GitHub username or by using their email ID. You can invite your collaborators. Collaborators nothing but your team members. Okay, how to add them, that I will show you later point of time. Okay, so with this we understood 2 points, guys. 3 points. So what is GitHub and why? GitHub is a cloud platform which is used to store the project source code at one place. So why we need to use GitHub? Developers will be working from different locations for our project. All the developers code we need to store at one place. That's where GitHub is going to help us for code integration. Easily we can integrate the code at one place. All the developers code we can keep at one place. And next thing, it is going to monitor who made the changes, who, when, why, what, who are making the code changes in the project. Yesterday my code is available. Today my code is not available. I can easily track who removed my code from the project. Who, when, why, what, everything I can track. So the next one, we understood environment setup for practice. You need to create the account in the github.com. It is free of cost. Then you need to download and install Git client software. Git client is used to connect with the GitHub repositories to perform the code integrations. So what is a GitHub repository? What is GitHub repository? GitHub repository is a place where we are going to store all the code. Okay. for one project, we can create one repository. For one project, one repository is sufficient. Okay. And the repositories are two types. One is called public repository. Another one is called private repository. What is the difference? Public means anybody can access. Private means only specific people can access. So you can give the permission for the people to access your repository. So that how to give by adding them as collaborators. How to add the collaborators to our repository, we will discuss in the coming classes. Okay, today is very first session. Still we are understanding the introduction part. How to add the collaborators in the upcoming classes, we are going to understand that concept. Are you clear? Are you guys clear with my point? Now, so here, before going to start the practicals on the GitHub, we need to understand Git architecture, guys. How we are going to work with this? What is our Git architecture? So to understand the practicals on the Git, let's understand the Git architecture. So to understand the Git architecture, there are mainly four important points. One is working tree, then second one is called as staging area. Third one is called as local repository. Fourth one is called as central repository, which is also called as the remote repository. So if you want to do the practicals with the GitHub, then you need to get the clarity on these 4 points. Working tree, staging area, local repository, and central repository. Are you guys able to follow me? Git repository, Git repo or GitHub repo, both are same. Repository means it is a place which is used to store all the code at one place. Okay. Right. So in order to do the practicals, first we need to understand the Git architecture. So to understand the Git architecture, we should know mainly 4 points here. What are those 4 points here? One is working tree. Second one is staging area. Third one is local repository. And fourth one is central repository. Sir, what is this working tree, staging area, local repository, central repository? Let's understand. So central repository, nothing but the GitHub repository that we created in the github.com. So in the github.com, we created one repository. That repository is called as central repository. Okay. In the github.com, we created one repository. That repository is called as central repository. Okay. This central repository is created in the github.com. For that repository, one URL also generated. For that, one URL also generated. For every project, one repository. For that repository, one URL will be available. All the developers will connect with that repository by using that URL only. Now, so here now assume that one central repository that we have created. So this is my github.com. In that I have account. In that I created central repository. Now this is our system. From this system, we need to integrate our code in the github.com. Now, so this is my system. In this system, here working tree will be available, staging area will be available, local repository will be available. Okay, so mainly 3 important things will be available in our system now when we are working with this GitHub. So what are those things? First one is called as working tree. First one is called as working tree. And the second one is called as staging area. Okay. And the third one is called as local repo. First one is called as working tree. Okay. Second one is called as staging area. Then third one is called as local repository. And one central repository is also available. Now, so as a developer, I'm going to do some code changes in my system. Okay. So I'm a developer now. I want to work with GitHub for my project. So being a developer, I will do some code changes. So in which folder you will create your file. For example, here I'm creating one file, or I'm creating one folder, or I'm creating one file here. For example, demo.java. Okay, in which folder you are going to create your files. So this is one folder called Git practice folder. In that folder, I created a file called demo.java. So in which folder you are going to create your files, or you are going to modify your files, that folder is called as working tree. So what is the meaning of working tree? Generally, our project folder is called as a working tree. So in which folder you are creating the files and you are modifying the files, in which folder you want to store your project files, that folder we are going to consider as working tree. How to represent one folder as a working tree? How to represent one folder as a working tree? To represent one folder as a working tree, we will use one command called git init command. Git init, git initialization. Okay, I opened my git bash from here, git practice folder. Okay, I opened git bash here, git practice folder. Currently, this folder is empty. In this folder, if I execute git init command, then it is initialized empty git repository. Okay, git init. What it is saying? Initializing the git repository in my folder. So now my folder is called as one git repository. This is called as working tree. This is called working tree. So in which folder you are performing your operations, that folder is called working tree. How to represent one folder as working tree? By using a command called git init command. So it is used to initialize the folder as a git working tree. Now in this git working tree, I can create a several. One is demo.java. I created one file demo.java, and I'm creating one more file test.java. Demo.java, test.java. So two files are created. So now these two files are new files. Just now I created them in the working tree. What is working tree? From which folder I am trying to perform the operations. So in which folder my project files available, that folder I will consider as working tree. How to represent one folder as working tree? By using a command called git init command. Then in this working tree, I created two Java files, two Java classes I have created. So when you create the files newly, by default, those files are not eligible for commit. Those files are in the unstaging area. Now, once you create the files in the working tree, if you want to send them, you need to add your files from working tree to staging area. If you want to send your files to the central, end of the day, our goal as a developer, we need to store our code in the GitHub central repository. How to store in the central repository? First, I will create the files in the working tree. Then I will add the files to the staging area. How to add the files to the staging area? There is a command called git add command. So now I created 10 files. Out of 10 files, how many files you want to send to the staging area? What is the staging area? This staging area represents which files are eligible for commit. Okay, I created 10. If I want to send all the 10 files to the central repository, I need to add the files to the staging area first. Staging area represents which files are eligible for commit. Currently, my files are not eligible for commit because just now I created them. I have not added them to the staging area. How to add the files to the staging area? By using a command called git add space file name. How to verify which files available in the staging area, which files not available in the staging area? By using a command called git status command. So now if I execute a command called git status command, it will tell me The files are added to staging or files are not added to staging? Not added. If the files are displaying in the, if the file names are displaying in the red color, those files are in the unstaging area. Those are not added to staging area. How to add them to staging area? Git add demo.java. That file is added to staging area. What is the meaning of adding to the staging? Making that file eligible for commit. So out of two files, one file I added to staging area. Now check the status of the working tree. Git status. One file is displaying in the green color, another file is displaying in the red color. Green file is nothing but it is added to staging area. Red color nothing but not added to staging area. So what is git init, git add, git status? Git init. It is used to initialize empty git repository or it is used to initialize working tree. Then once you create the files in the working tree, how to add them to the staging? Git add command. How to check the status of your working tree or staging area? Git status command. Git status command will tell you which files are added to staging area, which files are not added to staging area. Once files are added to staging area, then you need to commit the files from staging area to local repo. To commit the files to the local repo, the command is git commit. What is the command we are using to commit the files from staging area to local repo? Git commit command. So directly you cannot commit the files from your working tree to the central repository. So once you create the files in the working tree, add the files to the staging area, then commit the files to the local repository by using git commit command. Once the files are committed to the local repository, then you can send the files from local repository to central repository by using a command called git push command. What is the command we need to use to send the files from local repository to central repository? Git push command. So every developer should follow this process in order to perform code integration in the project. So developer will use one system. In that system, developer will set up a working tree. He will create the files in the working tree. Then he will add the files to the staging area. He will check the status of the staging area. If the files are available in the staging area, he will commit the files from staging area to local repository by using git commit command. By using git commit command. Once the files are committed to the local repository, then we can push those files to the central repository by using git push command. Okay, git init, git add, git status, git commit, git push. What is git init? Which is used to initialize working tree. What is git add? Add the files from the working tree to staging area. What is git status? It is used to verify which files are added to staging, which files are not added to staging. Then git commit. What is the purpose? Send the files from staging area to local repository. Then what is git push? Send the files from the local repository to central repository. What is the central repository? Central repository will be available in the github.com. So all the developers will have the access for central repository. In our project, all the developers will have the access for central repository. So I will send my code to central repository. Other developers also will send their code to central repository. Like this, all the developers code will be integrated at one place. Are you clear? Working tree, staging area, local repository, central repository. Central repository is also called as remote repository. Central repository we can also call as remote repository, guys. Are you clear with my point now? Are you guys clear with my point now? Come on. Remote repository and central repository, both are same. Central repository, some people will also call it as a remote repository. What is working tree, guys? Can you guys type in the chat box? What is working tree? What is working tree in this architecture? Project folder. Generally, we can consider that as a project folder where all our files will be available, that we can consider as a working tree. Then what is the staging area? Staging area is the intermediate area. What is the staging area? That is used to represent which files are eligible for commit. Okay. So how many files you created, and out of those, how many files you want to commit? Out of 10, how many files you want to commit? Which files you want to commit right now? You can add those files to the staging area. Once the files are added to staging area, then only those files are eligible for committing to the local repository. So what is local repository? In our system, GitHub will maintain one repository. In our system, GitHub will maintain one repository. The complete copy of the repository will be maintained in our system. That is called distributed repository management concept. So the local repository in your system itself, all the changes will be available. Then once the changes in the local, so if you want to send them to the central means remote repository, every team member can access. So to send the changes from your local repository to central repository, then you need to use a command called git push command. Git init, git add, git status, git commit, git push. Are you clear with my point? Now, so let me perform this operation from my folder, git practice folder. Let me delete everything from my git practice folder. So I created a new repository. Whenever you create a new repository, first time they will give you some commands here. Okay. So once you create the repository, just to copy this script, guys. So these are the initial commands they're giving. Echo command, which is used to create a file, readme.md, git init command, add the readme.md, git commit command, git branch command, remote origin command, push command. Okay. So first time, if you are new to this GitHub repository concept, if you want to send the first file to the remote repository, you no need to by heart the commands. They are only giving the commands for you to make your first operation in the GitHub. So echo, this is used to create one file. You can remove this, you can add your file also. Okay. Git init, initialize that folder as a working tree. Git add, which file you want to add to the repository. If you want to add all the files, git add. Dot means in this folder, what all the files available, you can add all those files to the git staging area, demo.java, test.java. Then git commit. Why are you committing? So commit means send the files from your staging area. First git init, initialize working tree. Add the files to the staging area. Then git commit. Commit the files from your staging area to local repo. So this branch command I will explain later. Remote add origin. So whatever the files you are having in the staging area or local repository, you need to send them to the central repository. In the GitHub, there are so many repositories available. In my account only, 131 repositories are available. 131 projects available in my GitHub account. So for every project, one repository. So in these 131 repositories, your code should go to which repository? From the local repository, you need to send the code to the central. So what is your central repository? That central repository URL we are configuring by using remote add command. Git remote add command we are using to send the files from our local repository to central repository. In the central repository, 130 plus repositories are available. So to which central repository you want to send it. Okay. So that's why we are going to use git remote add command to add central repository URL to the local repository. Once you configure the central repository URL, then you can use git to push command to push your files from local repository to central repository. Are you guys clear with my point? People are sending some questions. I will give the time for you to ask all your questions, guys. Don't worry. At the end of the session, I will give 10-15 minutes of time to ask all your questions. Okay. So here I have created one Git repository in the github.com that is called my central repository. Now I want to send the files from my local system to central repository. To send the files from the local system to central repository, we need to follow some architecture. So working tree, staging area, local repository. What is working tree? Working tree represents our working folder where you will create the files and modify the files. Basically, our project folder will be called as working tree. So in that working tree, once you create the files or modify the files, which files you want to commit, you need to add them to the staging area. Staging area is an intermediate area. It represents which files actually you are committing. Okay. So here to initialize working tree, init command. To add the files from the working tree to staging area, git add command. To check which files are added to staging area, git status command. Then, so the files which are added to staging area, only those files we can commit it to the local repository by using a command called git commit command. So once the files are committed to local, they are in our system only. If you want to send them to central remote repository available in the github.com, then you need to use git push command, git init to initialize working tree, git add to add the files from the working tree to staging area. Staging area represents which files eligible for commit. So to commit the files from staging to local repository, git commit command. Then to send the files from local repository to remote repository, git push command. Okay. So when you create the repository, by default, they are going to give you some script. Okay. So first time, you don't need to make any changes here. You simply execute this script, guys. Git init, git add. This is one file that I'm creating. Then git add, git commit, branch command. I'm not talking about this right now. We will talk about the git branches tomorrow. And remote add. Add the remote repository URL, then git push. Just go to this folder, just go to the folder where the git bash is available. Simply execute all these commands as it is. First time. Okay. Just I copied the commands which are given by this GitHub repository. When you create new repository, these are the commands it is giving. Just to copy this as it is, paste here and execute. Okay. Fine. So with this, I'm able to do some changes in my GitHub repository. My push is successful. I'm able to push my changes to GitHub repository. One empty file will be created. If you refresh now, there is a file called readme.md file is available. Now, here I have demo.java, test.java. So check the status of those files now. The status, git status. Now those files are eligible for commit. Those files are not eligible for commit, guys. By looking at the file color, can you tell me those files are eligible for commit? Those files are not eligible for commit now. Not eligible for the commit. How to make them eligible for commit? How to make these files eligible for commit? I need to add them to staging area. How to add them to staging area? Git add file name demo.java. Git add demo.java. One file I added to staging area. One file is in the staging area. One file is in the unstaging area. Now, so I added one file to staging demo.java. Then commit. Git commit. Okay. Why are you committing? You need to give the message also. Git commit -m, git commit -m. Why are you committing? Java file added. Okay. With this I committed. When I commit the file will go to local repository or file will go to central repository. When I commit a file, it will go to local or it will go to central? It will go to local only. How to send the files to the central repository? By using a command called git push command. When I use git push, my files will go from the local repository to central repository. Now go to the central repository and refresh. Now can you see my file is added in the central repository demo.java? Can you see my file is added to the central repository demo.java? Similarly, can I do this operation once again? Now check the git status command test.java. What is the status of this file, guys? Test.java. Is it added to staging? Not added to staging? Not added to staging. How to add the files to the staging area now? Git add test.java. Git add test.java. Now check the status again. Git status. New file, that is test.java, not added to the staging area. Added to the staging area. So if you want to remove from the staging, they are giving the suggestion. If you use git restore command, you can unstage the file. So if your file is in the working tree, add to the staging. By mistake, if you add to the staging, then you can unstage also by using this git restore command. We'll talk about that later. Now, my file is added to staging area, git status. If you want, you can unstage also. I want to commit. Git commit -m. What are you doing? Test file added. Okay. -m represents message. Commit message. Why are you committing? What is the reason for the commit you need to add? Commit -m. Commit message is done. Okay. Once it is committed, then you can see git status. Boss, you have done one local commit. You need to push to publish your local commits to the central repository. You have done one commit to the local, but you have not pushed it to the central. Use git commits. So I'm using git push command. So my changes will be pushed from local repository to central repository. Earlier only demo.java file available in the github.com. Now if I refresh, test.java also available in the github.com. One file I pushed 2 minutes ago, another file I have pushed just now. Are you able to understand today is very basic concept that we understood. So we are going to spend another 2 to 3 days to understand the complete GitHub and complete commands, how to work with the GitHub. Today is very first session, introduction, very basic operation I have performed on the GitHub. I created one GitHub repository and I pushed my files to the central repository by using 5 commands. Init command, add command, status command, commit command, push command. How to do this from the IDE like Eclipse, IntelliJ and all. That also I'm going to show you. How to work with Git Bash. First we are going to discuss this. Then later point of time I will show you how to perform these operations directly from the IDE also. You got my point, guys? Yeah. Are you guys clear with this one? So my 29 JRTP people, I want one person to share the screen and do this practice in the live session now. Who is having the GitHub account? Who want to share the screen and do this live practice in the class in your system? 29 JRTP people who want to share the screen and who want to do this live practice in the class? Can you respond in the chat box? Ram. Mr. Ram, are you interested? Ram J. Ram, can you unmute your mic now?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Ram. You joined from the laptop, right?
Yes,
You have GitHub account?
yes, I have.
Yeah, please share your screen. Guys, all of you observe. Ram is going to do the live practice. Whatever I have done in the class, Ram will do in his system now. Ram is sharing his screen. Okay,
I hope
Ram,
my
delete
screen
everything
is
from
clear.
here. I want you to create a new repository and do the practice. Delete everything.
Yeah, I will create a new folder over here.
Yeah, create a new folder. Git practice. Anything. Folder name can be anything. That's not important. Okay. Now go to github.com. Create a new repository. Go to github.com. Github.com. Yeah. Go and create a new repository. Click on new repositories. Click on new. Yeah. Give the repository name as something. Ashok IT. Anything. Okay. So that is going to be your project name. Yeah. Click on public. That's it. Create repository. Now copy this script. First one. Complete. Copy everything. Complete. Till
Complete.
go. You can use this icon to copy. Right side there
Yeah.
is an icon. Click on
Sure,
that.
sure.
You will copy. Yes. Now go to that folder. Open Git bash. Yeah. Paste it. Then enter. Init command, add command, commit command is available. Right. It is trying to push. So he already used Git bash in his system. That's why it is not asking for the password. When you use this for first time, it will ask for the password. Okay. Now create one file with a name called anything. Any file you can create. New, any file. abc.txt, test.txt, test, abc, that's it. Enter. Already txt available for your file. Yeah. Text file is created. Now go to git bash. Clear the screen. Clear. Execute git status. Guys, you can see the file. abc.txt file is available in the red color. It is unstaged. Stage that file. Git add file name. No. Not double quotes, just file name. Git add space file name. abc.txt. Enter. File is added to staging area. Now git status. Good. Now the file name is displaying in the green color. That means file is added to staging area. Now commit that file. Git commit -m message. Why are you committing? -m just practice. Anything you can give. Commit message. Yeah, enter. Now do the git push. Push is used to send the files from the local repository to central repository. Git push, that's it. Yes, push is completed. Go to GitHub repository and verify. Refresh. Your file will be available. Yes. He pushed a file with a name called abc.txt. So the push got successful. The file is available in the central repository. Now anybody can access that file from the central repository because this repository is public. Anybody can see that repository. Are you guys clear with my point? First time when you do this operation, it will ask you to enter your GitHub account password only for first time. Second time, it won't ask for the password. Password will be shared in your system only. Okay. So a lot of administration troubleshooting part I'm going to explain as today is the first session. Very basic operation we have done in the GitHub. I hope you guys got the clarity what practice that we have done.
Yeah,
Can you
I'm
guys
stopping
do
the
that
screen.
practice before coming to tomorrow's session? I want all of you to do this practice before coming to tomorrow's session. So tomorrow we are going to learn more in depth of this GitHub commands. So just we have seen 4 or 5 commands. Okay. There are so many commands, almost 20 commands that we have to learn to say that we know how to work with GitHub. Just we have seen 4 commands, 5 commands today. We are going to learn 20 commands to work with the GitHub repositories. Okay, good. Thank you guys. So with this, I'm stopping for today and we'll meet again tomorrow. Tomorrow we have both offline and online class. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to work on more commands related to GitHub, more concepts that we are going to learn related to GitHub in the tomorrow session. Is this clear for all of you? These notes, the diagrams and videos, everything I'm going to share in our WhatsApp channel, guys. So the people who don't have the access, so please join in this WhatsApp channel, then you will get all the details. Thank you, guys. So with this, I'm stopping for today. If anybody having any questions, then you can unmute your mic and you can ask me. Good.